let's do it. And I do have a sample app that I already created, so I can reference it if I forget anything. So first step, obviously, is to get the Hasura running. So they've given us this Docker Compose that I grabbed from their website. Very easy, much easier to run. So Docker Compose up. Here we go. I didn't run the detached flag, so we can see all the logs. Localhost 8080. So this is the Hasura console. Okay. Now what we have running, if we look at our Docker, we have the GraphQL engine, and then we have Postgres database. Okay, they're running as two separate containers. So let's quickly create the table. We'll call it conferences. And we have the name, text, and we have date, text. Just for simplicity, I decided to go with test. And then city. Create the table. Primary key required. We'll say this is frequently used columns. We'll add an ID, auto incremented. Okay, here we go. Okay, so our table is here. I'm gonna feed it some data. If I go into the GraphQL side now, I can see that we have queries against these items or in our database. So we have these properties.
Yep.
Obviously, we don't have any data right now, so we get conferences, just an empty array. So our database empty. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a mutation to seed the database. Okay. So we figured out how to do the importing the data. Okay, so now you can see here we have 53 pages. I don't know how many rows. Actually, we can tell through GraphQL how many rows we have. So now I have, I think 500 or so records in that database of all the conferences that are coming up in 2020. Okay, so before we move on to fetching that data using Angular with apollo-graphql, we can just run our queries here, just go over what you can do in GraphQL in general. So this Hasura console thing just allows you to see both. You see the data and you can run queries against it. But the queries that you run, they're just normal GraphQL queries. They're nothing exclusive to Hasura in any way. So in GraphQL, obviously you have a query, and you have mutation, and you have subscription. So subscription is similar to query, it's just that it's real-time updates. So you update your data source, you would automatically get the response. So we'll start by query. Query is just, allows you to run, read on the data. So if I say, give me all conferences by cities and name, you can see here that we're getting all the results. Now let's quickly get Angular Apollo client up and running to view this data. So we show how we can query it and mutate and whatnot. Probably not mutate, but query. Okay, let's get a Angular project going. So do I have ng? That's the Angular CLI. Yes, I do. It doesn't accept this. Okay, so ng new. Okay, so while we're getting set up, let's just see for Apollo GraphQL, what do we need to get up and running? We need to run this CLI command. Okay, here we go. So now we should have localhost 4200 Angular. Okay, we have an Angular project. Let's quickly add Apollo. That was already in terminal. So here.
And is it like, so what we see right now on the screen, is it just what comes from the default? Like when you install that Apollo Angular?
Yes, so this is just the default Angular seed project kind of thing. So what I did first is generate the new Angular CLI project. So I have a new Angular app with nothing. And then I went ahead and installed the Apollo Angular library. So now we are in business. We can start querying data from our GraphQL server. So first things, from a Apollo perspective, we go to the app module, and they have this. Actually, no. There's a GraphQL module, which has the URI for the GraphQL server. So this is the first step to hook up our Apollo GraphQL to our current GraphQL server. I got the URL. It's v1/GraphQL because I was doing v1/API. It's not right.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I have the URI hooked up. I have my app component. In this app component, we need to inject the Apollo service. So Apollo, and okay, what the hell is going on with me? I think it's this one. So now we'll try to fetch the data. I'll go to the GraphQL tutorial. Okay, watch query. Okay, so this is how we're gonna do this thing. We will define a GraphQL fragment in here. Copy this guy. Just get conferences. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
We'll do conferences. Basically what we need to do is we take the query that we ran into the Explorer. So clear this. We'll just do a simple query. Conference, city, date, ID, name. And we take this guy. We copy it in here.
And did you ever work with a package in WebStorm that allows you to run GraphQL queries from WebStorm?
No. Have you?
There is, like, I did experiment with it, like, maybe a year ago. So it's like, you write it the same way how you do it, how you write it right now, and then like it recognizes, so like, here you probably want a query, so that like it has like a small gutter icon, and then you press on it, it brings a panel at the bottom that gives you results.
What? Really?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So you configure it, you just give it the URL for your GraphQL server?
Yes.
Okay, nice, good to know. Okay, so we'll try to run the query now. So we use the watch query. So this dot apollo dot watch query, and we say conference. What did I call it? These conferences. And now this is, specific Angular stuff. We're subscribing. So watch query will return an observable. And for observables, you have, watch query will return this query reference, and then query reference has a value changes, which is an observable. And in Angular or with RxJS, you can subscribe to the observable this way. So you get a callback with the data, and then we just console log it. Actually, so right now we're gonna get the response, not the data. And then the data is wrapped inside. Let's give it a quick spin, see where we have.
GraphQL error. Oh, yeah.
GraphQL error, syntax error. Okay, we're doing something with the conferences.
So just an extra bracket, I think, at the bottom.
Extra bracket?
Yeah, like this one.
Let's see. Oh,
it's better, yeah.
Good job. Okay, here we go. Let's see our data, and you can see that we're getting all the conferences.
Yeah.
Now let me just pipe it out in a template. So we'll just use the ng4 to loop through conferences and conference dot we didn't we're not setting it in here. Data.
Hey Marwan?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, here we go. So conferences, conference dot name, conference dot city.
It's auto completion.
Yeah. And date. Let's go back to our Angular. Ta-da. So we see all the conferences.